need to know when exactly tipping became an everywhere experience. Because why am I asked to hit a tip prompt in a drive-thru? I'm talking about that little screen flip in places where tipping was never the standard. And somehow now I have to be in a moral dilemma before I get my drink.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you're tipping the Starbucks drive-thru. In fact, I've even been to a self-serve frozen yogurt place where I did all of the work, and when I went to the cashier, she swiveled that screen around and said, "It's going to ask you a little question."
Everywhere you go, about to flip the screen on you. You're about to get asked, would you like to leave that tip? Or better yet, they'll hit you with the, all right, it's just going to ask you a quick question on the screen real quick.
Honestly, if that frozen yogurt incident wasn't several years back and the first time I encountered a cashier asking for a tip, I would have set my food down and walked out without paying, because asking to be paid extra for doing nothing is an insult to customers. Obviously, I hit no, and actually, these days, tipping prompts have gotten so annoying that I now stare them in the eyes as I hit no tip, because I'm tired of literally everything getting more expensive with no additional value added, to the extent where it seems like, since COVID, the prices of everything have doubled and tripled. I feel like every month I'm getting emailed by a streaming service telling me, "Hey, we've got a price update." Oh, a price update. That means you're going to lower it, right? Of course not. How else is Amazon going to subsidize 5 seasons of a ridiculously expensive show that everyone hates without increasing their prices? That being said, at some point enough is enough, but before we get into that, recently a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000. Alright, so tipping has gotten crazy. What was once a nice courtesy for an extra good job is now basically an expected part of every business transaction. A handful of years back, it began with tipping cashiers for merely taking your order, and now they don't even have cashiers. They want you to tip the kiosk.
We're at the airport, guys, and in these kiosks, at the very end, it asks you if you want to leave a tip. Why would they ask for tips, guys? And here's the thing. This is a Whataburger, a fast food chain, in the middle of the airport. You want us to subsidize your poor pay?
Yeah, I'll wait for self-serve gasoline to start asking for tips too, as if oil isn't already expensive enough. And it's not just restaurants, it's like every service now.
So I drive my dad over to pick up the car, and he comes back with the keys, and he's kind of distraught, which is not like him. He's like, I literally just paid, I don't know, $500 to have my car fixed. And then the guy swivels the screen around and is like, you want a tip? 20%, 25%, 30%.
Now, I would have thought that she was making this all up, but I kid you not. I had work done on my house about a year back, and after charging me a price that seemed like extortion, the guy pulls out the iPad and says, "Yeah, it's just going to ask you a little question." So your local repairman is now asking for a tip. The whole point of tipping in the first place was to give a little extra for good service. You know, give the bellhop a little extra for carrying your luggage to your hotel room, which personally I think is stupid. I think employees and business owners should already be doing the best job they can because they want return business. Good service is how you create a successful company. And provided that I'm being a polite customer, I should not have to pay you extra to be nice to me. Because what tipping has turned into is this predatory anti-consumer system where you are essentially bullied into paying more than what you initially agreed to.
Tipping culture is targeting people pleasers, and it is not okay. As a people pleaser, you think that when someone shows me a pad that says 15%, 20%, 25%, they're looking at me while I press the button. I think I'm gonna hit none.
Yeah, you should hit none. I do every time. The system is so predatory that I enjoy hitting that button, and I enjoy the little maze that some of them make you go through to not tip. The ones where you have to hit like 4 different buttons to cancel the tip, instead of the one button it takes to pay extra. It gives me a sense of accomplishment when I've figured out that the trick is to hit custom and then type in 0.
I have tipped so many times in just the last few days. Coffee, tip. Drive-through, tip. Went to Chipotle and you tip before you even get your food. I don't even know if my food is gonna taste good and I'm tipping these people.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Though I do appreciate the cashiers who press no tip for you because they're fed up with tipping prompts. Those people are heroes. More importantly, there is a reason why you hate this system and you are morally justified for hating tipping because psychologically what's occurring here is a lack of transparency on the price. For example, you agree to a price of $10, but somehow if you don't pay $12.50, you're a heartless bastard who doesn't care about the sad life of the employees? Why are someone else's life issues my problem? I'm just trying to get a taco, and I shouldn't have to be afraid that people will intentionally do a bad job if I don't pay an upcharge. Then the second level of this is which jobs deserve tips and which ones don't. Movers, taxi drivers, barbers, why not tip the store clerk every time they tell you where something is? I mean, who has all this extra money where they can just drop an extra 15 to 20% on every single bill? Personally, I think we should only be tipping waiters because they're paid almost nothing because tips are expected. But also, morally, I don't think people should tip waiters either. And before people get mad, yes, I do tip the waitstaff at restaurants. However, we do have other examples in the world like Japan where people survive without this system. At restaurants in Japan, you don't tip, you just pay for the food, and what is frequently added onto that is a table fee that is a set cost for sitting down at the restaurant. There's your answer. We don't have to tip waiters now. Just charge a table fee, and also, because waiters are sales reps, they should get a commission when they sell high-ticket items like alcohol and steak or extras like dessert. With this type of system, when you sit down to eat, you now know what you're consenting to without some mystery price at the end based on how scared you are to look like a bad person. Because the bigger problem here is that if you continuously say it's okay for people to be unclear on how much they're going to charge you, you get shit like this.
I gave birth to this perfect, precious little angel in September of last year. It is April, nearly May of the next year, and I am getting bills in the mail nearly every single week. Let's look at them. Okay, this one is a bill for $2,000. The service description literally just says vaginal birth. Here's another bill for $1,261. What's the description for? Actually, it doesn't even say. Here's another one for $336. The service description is subsequent hospital care. What does that mean? Here's another $675 charge for hospital discharge day. What service is it? You're just charging me for discharge day? I don't know. None of it makes sense. My husband just called. He was on the phone for 20 minutes and we got no answers. They said they could get back to us in the next 90 days.
Yeah, she's not kidding. 2 years ago, I got injured lifting weights and had to go to the emergency room without insurance because mine was randomly canceled. And thanks to Obama, you can only sign up for medical insurance once a year. So my bill was really expensive despite the staff basically just giving me Tylenol and telling me to go home after 3 hours. I remember signing some paper at the hospital for like $4,000, which was insane considering how little service I received. And after around 2 weeks, they just kept sending me bills until the total cost was like $8,000. When did I consent to this? In fact, if you ask, they can't even tell you how much certain treatments cost. Or they do this thing where they tell you that your bill is a certain amount, but if you complain, they'll mark it down a ton. Sydney Watson showed that recently on Twitter. So basically, they're lying to you about the price. Pro tip though, if you get injured during business hours in America, don't go to the ER. Go to your local urgent care instead, where they'll charge you like $50 to $100 for talking to you for 5 minutes instead of $5,000.
$3,968.20 per month. That's how much it'll cost me, my husband, and my 3 kids to have health insurance. A month! That does not include dental and vision. No. That is just the bare bones minimum. That is a mortgage on a very expensive home. I'm not doing that math right now.
She's also not kidding. My insurance randomly shot up 40% last year. Same service, now it's just 40% more. It's so expensive that I've considered canceling it because it costs far more than just paying out of pocket, even if I go to the ER. It just seems like this system is designed to kill the middle class. Because if you're poor, you get your care for free, and if you're rich, the cost doesn't matter, but if you're middle class, you're screwed.
Your effective income, even when you're making like 20,000 or like it's like 30,000, it's like closer to like 50, 60,000, right? Because you have like the medical assistance program, that's the MAP program. You have food stamps, you have other supplemental assistance, you have housing assistance, you have a phone assistance, right? The Obama phones, which is actually done by Bush, but it doesn't matter. You have all these other things like, and yeah, you save so much fucking money whenever you're broke. Mm-hmm. But then whenever you're middle class and you're not making that, like, let's say you're making $40,000 a year, those are the people that are fucking broke because they can't get food stamps, they can't get assistance, but at the same time, they also don't have the money to pay for it out of pocket either.
Now, this is where I and a lot of other people are going to differ. I think the answer to these problems is not various social programs, but more so a coming together as a culture to vastly reduce the cost of these services to the point where people can easily afford them. You do this by exerting market pressure, which we'll talk about later, legislation.
Since President Trump has signed his executive order for hospital price transparency, only 1/3 of hospitals are in compliance. We need legislators to act to rein in these unchecked practices and to protect patients and taxpayers.
Personally, I don't think an executive order is enough because then the next president can just overturn it. It needs to be an actual law. So market pressure, legislation, and we need to get rid of all the scammers and thieves in this industry, which is something that I've talked about in other videos.
It's sad to think about it. Here in the United States, we're literally being defrauded by people who are taking advantage of old people, young people in daycares, disabled people with autism clinics. Unbelievable. You have people who drive around in BMWs and make competitions, Mercedes. Meanwhile, everyday American citizens are struggling to be able to afford their own bills.
But in my opinion, going back to what Asmongold was saying, this is all set up to kill the middle class. It seems like politicians and corporations want to make it so you only get to be independent if you're super rich and nothing costs that much to you. Otherwise, you get to be poor and dependent on government services, and you have to take whatever they give you. The point here is the removal of freedom of choice for most people, because if you shrink the middle class, then you're going to shrink the number of people who are in the financial position to say no to a bad deal. This inability for massive portions of the population to be able to say no causes prices to increase. And what makes matters worse is, trust me when I say that no one wastes more money than poor people and people with high incomes. Either rich people are wasting it and inflating the prices of everything for everyone else because the dollar amount doesn't matter to them, or poor people are wasting it and inflating prices because they don't know how to manage their money, or because they're too nervous to hit no tip on the iPad. All of this enables companies to continuously increase their prices, and that's how you get situations like this.
People, they want to have a special experience. And regardless of what your income level is, in some cases, a $9 experience does feel like you're splurging. And then what that means is we have to make it worthwhile, right? And then in other cases, people believe, well, this is a really affordable premium experience because they're saying like, well, it's less than $10 and I get a really premium experience. So regardless of where you're stationed in those income cohorts, we want to make that experience worth your while.
So many of these CEOs for food companies are just liars. I know he's pretending to be caring, but he talks like an asshole who's had every phrase he says thought up by a think tank. He's saying this stuff as they horrendously overcharge you for coffee. Starbucks is not a premium experience. Starbucks is fast food. There's no reason that any of their drinks should cost $9. Now, I'm not super familiar with what Starbucks charges for all their drinks because I almost never go there, but I do know they charge around $4 for their black coffee, which is insane because the coffee beans that Starbucks uses are so low quality that it probably only costs like 20 cents for them to make it black. Why would anyone pay for this on a regular basis? Why would you go here like multiple times a week? Not only do you have to drive to Starbucks and wait in line, which takes time, whereas making coffee at home takes almost no time because the machines do everything for you, but also you can buy the most premium, expensive coffee at Sprouts, and it will cost maybe around $1 or $1.50 for a cup versus $4 for the low-quality garbage at Starbucks. And then they want a tip.
Bitch, I'm at Miss Coldstone, girl, and bitch, I will die on a cross, bitch, before I ever pay this much for a little bucket of ice cream. Y'all crazy.
That guy had some energy or style, let's say, but who the hell is paying for this? And Cold Stone is reportedly another store that likes flipping the iPad around to ask you a little question. But $17 for a pint of ice cream? The most expensive ice cream that I've seen at the store is this ice cream here. It's like $10 for a pint, and it's made with premium ingredients. Whereas here is the stuff that goes into Cold Stone ice cream. How are these companies who don't really provide an experience that's much better than just having ice cream at home still in business after charging $28 when I can get the same size of Alden's organic ice cream for around $11 or $12? And if you buy the cheap ice cream, I think it's like $4 or $5. Well, I'll tell you why they can charge this much. It's because people keep saying yes. It's the same reason why they ask you to tip cashiers now. It's because lots of people say yes.
Barista Dylan Schenker says tips make up 10 to 20% of his pay. He is 39, he has a decade of experience and expertise, and
I've never made more than $25,000 a year. I cannot even wrap my head around the idea of even just making $30,000 or $40,000 a year.
roughly half of Schenker's customers tip, which is in line with the national average.
50% of people are saying yes. This was from NPR, and by the way, if you're 39 and don't make a lot of money, that's not my problem as the customer.
There's just something really, really demoralizing about someone seeing that screen, knowing I'm not rich, and kind of just not caring about you enough to kind of like want to help you make a living.
Yeah, I don't care. If this job is not making you a living, then you should ask for more money from your employer or get a better job so you don't have to abuse customers like a streamer begging for subs. Now, you may think that you saying no is enough, but that doesn't matter if 50% of the people are still saying yes. If half the people say yes to a 20% tip at Starbucks, then that's like tens of millions of dollars a year, if not more. If you look at the article, they say, well, this is a way of paying our employees more without increasing prices. Yeah, because you're tricking customers into paying 20% more for their drink and then shaming them for not doing it like this 39-year-old. That's dishonest.
There's a lot of pressure to keep prices low for increasingly frugal customers. Tipping is a way to get more money from customers without actually charging them more.
It's a subsidy. It's a wage subsidy to the employer. It's not a tip. It goes to your wage. It's just the amount that the employer doesn't have to pay you. And people don't understand this.
Not to mention the people who end up tipping because they clicked yes on accident. But all of this works on supply and demand. This may sound a little bit different from your economics course in school, but they are supplying asking you for a tip, and you create more demand for that system by clicking yes. Here's the deal. The real price of something is whatever people will pay for it. So if you keep saying yes to a $9 premium experience at Starbucks, then in 2 years they're going to try to see if they can get away with a $12 experience. And everything else will increase in price too because other companies will start copying Starbucks. So the answer to stopping these price increases is one, in terms of the medical industry, demand price transparency. Of course, this isn't the only problem with the medical industry, but it is a major one that I think will significantly reduce prices. As for the tipping and the $9 coffees, we need to bring shaming culture back. This culture of extreme tolerance has had a lot of negative side effects. For example, being afraid to say that being fat is bad for you increases everyone's medical insurance premiums, thanks to the Obama administration, as well as not shaming people for spending $28 on $4 of ice cream for the premium experience of polysorbate 80 and red 40 is making your life worse. Because if people pay $28 at Cold Stone, which is like 2.5 times the price of organic ice cream at the store, then Cold Stone is going to say, okay, well, let's see if we can get 31. It should cost you social value if you're one of those people who enables companies to price hike everything because you want to overspend instead of being responsible with your money. I've actually gotten rid of almost all my friends who constantly throw money away because being around such people affects my spending habits. And when it comes to rich people, really one of the most harmful things they can do is overspend because that inflates prices for everyone else. Last, when it comes to tipping, silently clicking no is not enough because when you do that, statistically, the person behind you is just going to tip anyway. So the iPad question doesn't go away. You have to actually openly show your disgust for these companies trying to prey on guilt psychology. It's simple. The second they turn that screen around and say, it's going to ask you a little question, you say out loud, I'm not tipping. And for the people who are going to say, well, they're just employees, the company makes them say that. I don't care. They're still engaging in it. Stop having empathy for people who are trying to prey on you. If they don't want disgruntled customers, then they can be one of the hero employees who presses no tip for you. Also, for those who are afraid, if you can't say no to an iPad, then you are definitely letting people walk all over you in other areas of your life. It's time to practice standing up for yourself. By saying no out loud, you're not just saving 20% on your meal, but you're also empowering everyone else in line who hears you say it to say no as well. Because none of these people want to tip either, they're just caught in the scam. And I guarantee you that if just 1 in 10 people verbally says that they aren't tipping and gets mad, all of this shit will stop. If just 1 in 10 people is a ticking time bomb every time a screen is turned around, companies aren't going to want to deal with that. So it's time to start being more disagreeable for the betterment of yourself. Anyway, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.